Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Over the past few weeks, we've been looking at some nations which Gaijin definitely hates, unfortunately missing out a ton of different things for them, and hopefully they will rectify this in the future. But it's time to talk about a nation in War Thunder that Gaijin loves, and that of course is Israel. Israel is one of those nations in the game which many have basically said shouldn't have existed in War Thunder, mainly because it doesn't really have a ton of vehicles, and those vehicles could easily go to different nations. It also broke a bunch of barriers when it comes to its addition, meaning that it didn't even start at rank 1, which is something that was completely new to a lot of players. And the fact that they exist in the game itself shows that Gaijin truly loves the nation. Otherwise, they would have just never put them in the first place, since there are so much or so many ideas which are against them being even formed in the game. They also gave them the majority of MBTs when it comes to their ground tech tree. One of the things that actually favors Israel, in my opinion, is the simple fact that whatever lineup you play, you know you have at least 2 MBTs, which is the core of any great lineup. And a lot of other nations, especially when they were first added over their first years, had a bunch of BRs which they just didn't really have a lot in. When you have a look at Israel, especially with the explosion of MBTs, there is always going to be something to play in a lineup with at least 2 of them. This means that your core is already sorted, something that cannot be said, even today, from many nations that have already been in the game for so long. And Israel already has that sorted. So the minor issues with them, such as the AAs, which, you know, they've gone a long way to improving, and also the light vehicles, which I'm sure will come along later on, it just means that the foundation is set for them to take over, which is great. The other thing is the fact that the nation starts at a high rank, and this is something which, you know, some players have turned around and said is a negative decision, because obviously it means you don't get access to them at the start of the game, but there is a way of flipping this round and making it positive. By the time that you actually get into Israel, after researching a bunch of other nations, or even just one if you want to do it quickly, you should be more experienced in the game, giving you a better platform to start off the Israeli nation, where other nations you have to get in the doldrums, you have to start from below and kind of work your way up. With Israel, you already know that the player has at least some experience going into the starter vehicles, making it very positive. Also, since it starts at rank 4, you get better bonuses for RP, so it's a little bit easier to grind those types of vehicles, and then also you get access to dailies and specials straight away, whether it's the army or the aviation tree, even with the Sakin being a 3-3 aircraft at rank 4, which is fantastic for stuff like events, and also even battle pass things to get it through. Now this is just really nice. At the same time, there's a decent amount of copy and paste in the Israeli tech tree, but that isn't always a bad thing. Copy and paste as an idea does generally get boring after a while, but as long as there is a difference in the copy and paste vehicles, whether it be a round, whether it be a missile, whether it be thermals, it means that they play slightly differently to the previous ones, and no matter how many that you add, it still means that there is a bit of a spice of variety that is, you know, in it. It also means and shows War Thunder players what the future could become in other tech trees, showing how many variants of specific vehicles are built, and this can lead to like the history idea where, you know, War Thunder is not just a game, it is also a knowledge base, meaning that whenever stuff gets added, I'm sure many people do a ton of research into these vehicles and learn from them. Israel is great for education in that way because it shows you how many different ways you can add machine guns to vehicles, how many different ways you can add ERA blocks to vehicles, and how many different ways you can change FCSs on specific vehicles. They also have something that is not unique to Israel, but still pretty good. They have access to a low-tier ATGM carrier, and as we know, when it comes to ATGM carriers, they are pretty powerful. These are machines which have very high penetration on their missiles, way higher than anything else at the level, and the Zaklam Tega at 6.7 has access to a missile which pens 600 millimeters, meaning that any heavy tank or any vehicle that even gets close to it will get blown away by the 2 kilos of TNT equivalent in the SS-11. The only other nation which gets access to this firepower at this level is of course France, but who would play France over Israel, especially with the rank 1 of France? The other parts of it is, when it comes to Israel, is pretty fun. It was one of the first nations to get access to APS, the Active Protection System. The good old Merkava actually got access to it at the higher levels. There was that good old update where they added it, to a bunch of different things. They added it to the Black Knight. They added it to another system, which I can't remember. Oh, the Drozd. And then also the Merkava Mark 4M. It has the Trophy HV, probably the best threat system in the market. There's also some pretty cool esports skins for the Merkava, making it really fun and really enjoyable to look at, because as we all know, one of the things that's really cool is to show off your bling in War Thunder, whether it be historical or whether it just be pretty colors everywhere. It's something that's super important to kind of razz the daz. Then, also, there's no boring naval grind, because there just isn't a naval tech tree. So, you don't have to slog through to try and spade vehicles in there. You can just focus on the other naval tech trees, which are much better, and also there isn't really a chance of Israel getting a naval tech tree. It also, because of the fact it doesn't have a naval tech tree, and also it starts at rank 4, means that a lot of people who want stuff like independent tech trees of their own specific nation, definitely not because of nationalism though, but because they just really, really like the vehicles, definitely have a chance of getting them in the game now. So that means there's just been a ton of talk about different tech trees and a ton of great conversations about different independent nation vehicles that we can get into the game. So Israel in War Thunder is the reason why that happens, and that can only be a positive because it leads to more conversations from more interesting people. The other thing is, early in their lifespan, they were given an event vehicle. A vehicle which even just got upgraded. The good old Kafir C2 was given the Python 3s, and that is one of the most powerful IR missiles in the game, and you can get access to it just straight out of the box. It was actually, the event vehicle was added very early on when it came to Israel. A lot of cool stuff in the higher ranks. The Kafir C7, the C2, the C7 being very dominant when it first came out, and then even as we go along, they have an F-16, and they have a crazy upgraded F-4, which is super fun as well. So they were given an event vehicle super early on. Some nations hardly have any event vehicles, even after years of being in the game. It's just been kind of nuts when you think about it. China obviously just recently got the QN506, but it took them a long time for that, and they don't have any aviation event vehicle. Very sad. Then a bunch of other nations, Japan hardly ever gets any event vehicles either, when you actually have a look at their tech trees. But Israel, after it was added, boom, straight in there. And then also recently, another massive thing that was added to Israel to get people more interested was the Magak 6B Gal, the squadron vehicle. Another thing that most nations just don't have. There's so many nations in War Thunder that just do not get access to these squadron vehicles. I don't think France has a squadron vehicle. Good old France just doesn't exist in the realm of squadrons. Italy, I don't think even has a squadron vehicle either. But Israel, the youngest nation in the game, gets access to one, which is wonderful, meaning that you can bolster lineups, and also you can just skip a bunch of the tiers if you want to and just play that vehicle. Pretty cool. Merkavas are also bussing, very fun vehicles to play, and always nice to kind of soak rounds with the transmission engine and then fire back. Those feel really nice. And also, there's just a big mix of different nations' technology, giving you the spice of variety, whether it's the French with the Vautours and stuff like the Sambad, whether it's the Americans with the F-16 or the M60 or the M48, or whether it's once again the AML-90 from the French, or the AMX-13, which is pretty fun, or these shots from, of course, the British, or the Terrans from technically the Soviets eventually, and the ZSU-57 and the Shilka-2, and then the Macbeth as well from America. There's so much variety from so many different nations, all put into the same tech tree, which is just wonderful to see. That's what you want to see. You want to see a good old stirring, boiling pot of different ideas and different stuff going forward, and that is what Israel is in War Thunder. It's just a bunch of cool things which are all put in the same place that you can enjoy. And also has a helicopter tree. It took some nations many years to get access to helicopters, and when they did, they were pretty gaff. Israel comes in, and boom, they get a helicopter tree pretty much straight away, and it's full of pretty fun vehicles. I've got to say, when I look at Israel, and the way that it's treated, and the fact it's even here in the first place, it only shows that Gaijin loves them in War Thunder. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.